From now on, let's start the presentation. The title is A Study on Observation of Reflective Classes by Korean Language Teacher. Introduction. The purpose of this study is to examine the contents of teachers' empirical reflection on Korean language classes based on the Korean language teachers' class observation reports. For this study, a reflective class observation report written by a teacher after observing the class was collected. And I will explore the contents of the teacher's empirical reflection on the Korean language class. Korean language education has achieved rapid growth thanks to the explosive increases in the demand for learners. This has led to issues such as diversifying learners' learning motivation, developing educational materials, and improving teaching methods, as well as nurturing professional Korean language teachers. In recent years, the stable settlement of Korean language education institutions at home and abroad and continuous increases in the number of Korean language learners have provided an opportunity to have a positive view on the sustainability of nurturing Korean language teachers. This has led to interest in professionalism and qualitative growth in Korean language classes. In the meantime, various programs of degree and non-degree programs has been opened to train Korean language teachers, and a significant number of Korean language teachers has been produced. However, when compared with the quantitative growth of Korean language education field or the rate of increases in the number of Korean teachers, there was insufficient discussion on the qualitative improvement of Korean language classes and the professional development of teachers who lead the classes. Teachers often have difficulties when learners are less satisfied with their classes or when the cause of low class satisfaction is the teacher teaching ability or teaching method. In the case of Korean language classes, the reality is that teachers' difficulties are aggravated by the linguistic and the cultural diversity, as well as the acceptance of the learner's characteristics caused by differences in the purpose and the motivation of learning Korean language, and the classroom environment and the class operation method. In Korean language classes, learners from various languages and the culture often participate in the class together. It can be said that the Korean language classroom has a more complex learning situation and structure than the classroom field or general subject. Therefore, Korean teachers need not only the class execution skills necessary to organize and guide the learning contents, but also the ability to understand and copy with the accident and unexpected situation they may face in the Korean language classroom. In order to understand the Korean language class, it is necessary to have various perspectives on the teaching phenomena occurring in the Korean language classroom and the teaching behavior of Korean language teachers. In this study, to understand the Korean language class and to discuss the qualitative improvement of the Korean language class and cultivation of teachers' class expertise. The present study aims to examine the phenomenon of Korean language class and the teacher's teaching behavior through the teacher's reflective experience. And, and through this, we intend to explore the direction necessary to improve the observation content and teaching method of Korean language classes. Next, reflective class observation. In general, class observation is the most commonly used means for data collection, analysis, and evaluation of class processes to improve teaching method. Through class observation, it can be used as basic data for research and improving teaching and learning method. As well as having diagnostic and prescriptive function for classes. This enables a more effective lesson plan, help teachers to plan formally and direct changes in the teaching behavior of teachers and enables a well-organized curriculum in which teachers and the students interact rather than being a flexible and creative activity. The teacher's class activity was regarded as a scientific activity that follows an effective teaching strategy to achieve a given goal or a technical relational activity. From this traditional point of view, it is the subject of class activity evaluation and scholarship, and the classroom course in the field is focused on evaluating the class behavior of fellow teachers using an analytical and standard checklist and discuss improvement plans based on this. Therefore, in order to improve the quality of the class and enhance the teacher's class expertise, rather than just observe the class for class evaluation, it is necessary for the teacher to interpret their own class and attempt to take a holistic approach. Class daily routine for teachers, and the daily life is something they do all the time, so they often do not pay much attention. In other words, since lessons are very natural for teachers, unless they have particularly interested reflective questions to try to find problems in their own lessons and improve their lessons do not arise anymore. If the teacher does not continuously reflect on the class and make continuous effort to improve their class, it will be difficult for the teacher to perceive the act as a class meaningfully, no matter how much teaching experience they have. In other words, the fact that giving a class to teacher is a daily thing means that it is not easy to question the class unless the teachers pay special attention to their class. But teachers' classes do not only function as a means or tool necessary for the educational field, but rather help the student to learn by understanding the subject and present what the teacher understands to the student. Teachers face their own limitations while teaching, but through this process, they provide opportunities for continuous growth and development. In other words, on the surface of the class, The teacher helps students learn, but behind the scenes, the teacher also changes and grows through the work. Therefore, in order to help learn and to change and grow themselves, it is necessary to constantly reflect and observe one's own class. Next, the Korean language class observational study is follows. Next, uh, method data. Uh, in order to collect the data necessary for this study, all teachers of the Korean Language Institute at University A in Busan were asked to film their class video at least once a semester in order to minimize the inconvenience of the classes due to the filming of the classes. No photography specialist or other auxiliary personnel were used, and the teacher installed and the camera and recorded their own class. The class filming period was from September 2018 to December 2019, and the class subject was chosen by the teachers themselves. In addition, we did not plan or implement a separate class for filming the class, and requested that the scene of the class be captured in the video as it is. Classes were filmed once per semester, and after the class was filmed, students were asked to observe their own class video until the end of the semester, and then write an observation report about the class. No special format or contents was presented for the class observation report, and the teachers were allowed to observe their own classes from an objective point of view, freely write improvement on class contents and the method and the point they felt through class observation. Among the data collected in this way, 50 class observation reports necessary for conducting this study were selected as analysis data. Next, participant. The 50 pieces of data collected for this study was based on class observation reports prepared by 36 Korean teachers. The basic information about the study participants is shown in Table 1 below. Gender, education background, major, academic ability. Next, instrument. The purpose of this study is to examine the contents of class reflection based on the self-class observation report of Korean teachers. To this end, the data analysis was attempted using NBVO 12, qualitative research program, and a case study approach was attempted to interpret the collected class observation report. NBVO 12 is an optimized tool for organizing non-uniform data and establishing the frequency and the model of data, and is useful for recalling and reporting information related to questions that researchers have in the course of research. Next, process and the data analysis. Through the analysis of the self-class observation report, the first coding item was 19, and the total number of coding was 362. All coding item was categorized into teacher fact, learner factors, class factors, and environment factors. As for the detailed item according to the main factors, the teacher factors included these contents related to teacher speech, teacher attitude, and the writing, and the learner. And the learner factors include these details about the learner's class participation and the learner's situation. Class factors include classes materials and class preparation status, class composition, and class progresses, and the teacher's perception of class improvement. And it is the contents of the classroom environment in which the class taken place is placed due to environment factors. Result, first, teacher. Teacher factors include teacher utterances, teacher attitudes, and the contents on writing. Among the teacher factors, reflective contents on teachers' utterances appeared the most with 35 coding numbers, and it is impossible to reflect on the teacher's own utterance during class. Therefore, in the process of peering into their class through the class video, the teachers themselves often recognize the problems revealed in the class utterances. The contents of the reflection related to the attitude of the teachers also had an opportunity to identify problems and reflect on the direction of future improvement by observing one's own class behavior from an objective point of view outside the classroom. In some cases, the problem of writing is related to the classroom environment, but most of the class video allow the teacher to recognize the point for improvement by looking at the backboard from the learner's perspective and looking at the contents of writing. Yeah. Next, learner. The learner factors contain the description of the learner's situation and the reflective contents of the learner's participation in class. The description of the learner's situation mainly contains the contents of the learner's attendance, perception, and the ability to use Korean language. Regarding class participation, most of the content reflected on the problem of learners' participation in class or the problem of activians were occupied. In addition, in order to overcome these problems, teachers suggesting ways or thinking about them themselves appeared in the class observation report. Next, class. Class factors accounted for more 63% of the factors shown in the class observation report, and the number of coding was 229 out of 362. Contents corresponding to class factors include reflective contents in class preparations, class materials, class composition, and the class progress. Since the behavior of class observation itself is a process of looking into the teacher's own class, it is judged that the most reflective contents about the class composition or class processes directly related to the class appeared. Okay. Next, environment. Environment factors did not take up a large part of all class observations. The total number of coding was 18, which was 4.9%. Because the environment of educational institutions or classroom is already familiar to teachers. There were not many cases in which the problems revealed through class observation were related to the classroom environment. The contents of the report also presented problems such as the uh, autonomous arrangement of class time, the size of heating of the classroom, and the backboard and the equipment provided in the classroom. Last conclusion. Discussions related to the teaching expertise of teachers should be conducted not only in a theoretical approach, but also in the classroom. Recently, in the field of Korean language education, there is a discussion about class observation and the class consulting for class improvement or teachers' class expertise. And effort are being made to develop and apply various programs in this regard. In this study, the Korean language teacher became the subject of class interpretations to understand the class behavior so that they could look at their class as a whole. Okay, thank you for listening to my present.